Assalamu alaikum and welcome to this week's weekly parenting show on Inspire 105.1 FM. Your host today is myself, Sister Naveed, and joining me for today's show are Sister Fazilat and Sister Masarad. Assalamu alaikum to both of you.
Walaikum Assalam. How are
Welcome,
you?
Salam.
Alhamdulillah, I'm well. How are you, Fazilat? It's been a while. We haven't had you on. How are you?
Alhamdulillah. Been busy with work and family, and you know how it is. So,
Yeah. Yes, yes,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And how are you, Masarad? You okay? Thank you for
Alhamdulillah.
joining again.
Yeah, Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, that's good to know. So before we begin on today's topic, just out there for the listeners, feel free to give us feedback, to contribute to today's show and any of the other shows that we have done. Any gaps you think we may have had in the topics, and you think there's an area that we can cover or we can come back to again, please feel free to advise us and we will take that into consideration. If you've got any questions, any comments, you want any feedback on today's show, or you want access to any of our previous shows, please do contact us on 015-8248-1822. That's the Inspire FM line, and they will arrange for the previous shows to be sent to you, or they will pass your messages on to you and we will get back to you. Alternatively, you can message in on 07794811822. I have had many people from not just Luton but outside of Luton contact me about gaining access to the parenting shows. So I just want to put it out there on air that you can go into the Inspire FM website, you can click onto the parenting show, and a lot of shows do come up that have recently been played. But if you want any backdated shows or any particular shows, you can make that request as well, and Inspire FM will arrange that for you. If they don't, contact me and I will speak to them and make sure that that's been sorted for yourselves. Coming back to today, inshallah, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Today's topic of discussion is brain rot, and it's an important topic. It's a word that's actually been recognized in the dictionary now as well. It's very particular and significant when it comes to the coming generations and the youth. And it might be a word that we don't quite understand, or we might not understand the seriousness of it and the depth of the seriousness of this issue of brain rot in our youth and in our future generations. And hopefully we intend to investigate this today and discuss this from a parent perspective, what we can do, what it means to us, how moving forward we can maybe, inshallah, deal with this and gain some kind of control and go back to brain growth, which is how we hope our future generations to be sustained, inshallah. So coming straight to you guys, Fazilat and Masarat, brain rot, what does it mean to you, and how did the thought of it come to you? I'm going to come to you, Fazilat, because you kind of suggested the show based upon the AI information and research. So what was it? How did it hit you?
So I was on TikTok.
Yep.
And I came across a study that was done in MIT, where they had some participants, and over 4 months they monitored their brain activity, and they did a writing test. So it's quite simple study in that way. So they did writing tests and they did scans, and it was over, like I said, 4 months. And they found that, and these were academics. So the participants were recruited from universities in America.
Mm-hmm.
And they split them into groups, where one group was Chat GPT users, one were Google users, and one they had no tools at all. And so they monitored their brain activity over 4 months, and they found that the Chat GPT group users couldn't quote their own work, or couldn't remember their own writing. And it wasn't like days later, but say like even hours later, because it wasn't their work, was it? It was so that the figure was, I think, 83 or 84% that failed to quote their own essays,
Mm,
and they found that basically the thing was the conclusion of the study, to wrap it up, I suppose, is that the brain slowed down, it
mhm,
became weaker. And there were obviously other findings as well, which we can talk about during the show. But that was it. Because they were reliant on the people that were reliant on AI, Google or ChatGPT, their brains functioned less than the
mm,
ones that didn't have the tools. The ones that didn't have any tools were more sharper and more aware than the ones that actually used AI. So I know the word that we're using is brain rot, but it's actually
mm,
like a lazy brain, isn't it? Not doing anything with it and being spoon fed. So that's where the idea of our show came from.
yeah. What are your thoughts, Masood?
Yeah, when you mentioned this topic, and we were discussing how, you know, the youngsters today, they use all sorts of brain rot words, and they have no meaning, and they're really
Mm,
silly and even annoying when they
mm,
constantly use those words.
mm,
And like, I feel like the word brain rot suggests it's a sign of declining intelligence, basically.
It is. And as I was saying at the beginning of the show, that brain rot is now officially a word and it has a definition. It's the deterioration of the cognitive function from excessive low quality internet content. And brain rot is now becoming a topic of discussion. And it's in relation to the growing concern for the future generations, impacting their attention spans and their executive functions, and the impact that that's also having on their social skills. So experts are now saying that brain rot is going to be having an even more complex issue and concern on the youth. And there's many areas, and I'll delve into them, but point by point today, about the areas of concern that they have in relation to it. So it's even more of a complex issue for the youth. And as you're talking about the brain rot words, they're actually called brain rot words, aren't they? And we're seeing youngsters, the current trend in young primary school children. Both of you have mentioned this to me. I've not witnessed it myself. I've not been to Sheffield to see my young nieces and nephews yet that are 8 and 10 to see if they're using these words, but the 6, 7 things that the kids at primary school are doing. Fazila, you mentioned it with your nieces and nephews. Masarat, you mentioned it about your children being exposed to it. So you can give us a little bit of in-depth and enlightenment to that, and what you feel the concerns as aunts, uncles, parents, or in the community we should be having. Because Fazila, yourself, mashallah, your kids are grown up now. They're not going around doing the 6, 7, but there's other brain rot activity taking place. And Musarat, mashallah, and this is what we try to do, have the spectrum of parenting and guardian role models on our show so we can give a variety of insight to the listeners. So we'll be discussing that, and then moving on to more serious issues like you mentioned. It's the beginning of the research into AI and the use of it, and the impact it's having on the functionality of the brain, as you mentioned with this MIT study that's been conducted in America. And then, inshallah, we hope to connect it back to Islam. Inshallah, how does Allah say we use the brain, and what is its purpose and objective? Inshallah. So we've got a lot to get through. But let me start from the 6, 7 thing. What is this? I'm sure the listeners already know about it. And what's your concern, or do you have a concern when your kids are just walking around saying this or doing this, or your nieces and nephews? Whoever wants to go first.
So basically, I came across it. I mean, um, I came across it through my nieces and nephews and through
Oh,
a
you did.
teacher. Yeah, so through
Okay.
a teacher. And with my nieces and nephews, it was I walked in and they said, "Oh, um, Papa, say 6, 7," and I'm like, and I'm like, why? And I think we do, and we don't think, but we should question any sort of
Yes.
action, isn't it? And I was like, why are they asking? And they're like, no, no, just say it, just say it. And I said, but no, I don't want to say it. I want to know why I'm saying it. Why are you
Mm,
asking me to say it? And they couldn't give an answer. And
mm,
so then we had, and they're all in primary school. So the eldest say would be say 9.
mm,
And so I sat there and on tried to, on their levels, have a conversation is that why are you doing something when you don't know the reasoning behind it? Is it just because everybody's doing it, you're doing it, you think it's something trendy, but then what's the purpose behind that action? I think that's important because we don't want to be, and I think it links back to this AI and so on, that we don't want to be just sheep blindly following like zombies and doing just because everybody else is doing. And they couldn't. When I broke it down, that, is that what's the meaning behind it? What's, like, for example, if we pray because Allah tells us. I went down to that level, or you go, you learn the Quran, or you listen to your parents, or in that way, or you eat when you're hungry. You're eating because you're hungry, or if you're drinking water, or you go to the toilet because you feel the need to go to the toilet. So they were younger, so we had that kind of. But why are you saying 6, 7? And they couldn't, and it was kind of good because I think they stopped and thought. It made them think, and I think they felt a bit sheepish afterwards, like we can't justify it to people, like why we're saying that. So that was that aspect. Then I was having a chat with the teacher that I know, and she was saying as well that she didn't know how to deal with this issue of 6, 7, and and she goes that she had looked into it. Where did it originate from? And she was saying that it was some basketball players or something that they just said it. They just after that win or something, they just said 6, 7. Yeah,
win. Yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of just went viral. So there was no thought process behind it. There was no reasoning behind it, and it just is something that's just become like a trend. So she thought, and she did, I suppose, similar to what I did in that she just started saying 6, 7 in her class, and I think the kids also found that, hang on, this isn't really cool as we thought it was. Like if a teacher's saying it, then what's the purpose behind it? Like, so I think we have to question it, isn't it? And there's lots of things like that happen, new trends that come up, and I think it is important that we question why we doing these. What's the reasoning behind it?
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, similar to what Fazil had said. Like my kids were using it all the time, and I was like, "What does it mean?" Because I had no idea. And they were like, "It's just a trend." And then I saw a few reels about it. First, it said, one of the Islamic ones, they said it's to do with some pagan numbers and magic and stuff. But, I discussed it with one of my friends, and they were like, no, it's just a trend originating from the basketball players and things like that. But just like Fazilat is saying, it makes no sense, and no need of doing something which makes no sense. So kids need to understand this. And other than not only the 6, 7 trend, even before that, like since I think last 2 years or something, all the children who play Roblox, they know about these brain rot words. They are Italian abbreviated words, a list of words which they've been using. And, I've been asking them, do you really know the meaning of it? Why have you been using it? And I had to literally, ban Roblox entirely. Yeah. I had to take away the screens because I understood that, it's really mindless and silly and a waste of time as well, because children are not really learning anything from it, and what kind of entertainment it is which makes no sense.
I think there's so many elements that you guys have already touched on, and as you were speaking, I was jotting a few notes down. I think the very first thing that I would like to address about today's topic, and the fact that the seriousness behind this, anybody could think, come on, they're kids, they're primary school kids, they're just going around saying 6, 7. Are you taking it a little bit too far, Sister Fazila, Sister Musarrat? With the fact that it's brain dead, the fact that, are they leaders or are they sheep, or what's the reason behind it? And I think one of the key elements that I just want to deal with right at the beginning of the show is that in Islam, we have time out, we have relaxation, we have let them play, let them enjoy themselves. Even Islam encourages up to the age of 7, where, they just play and you let them enjoy themselves. However, when it comes to being brain dead, and this is a really important principle in Islam, we do not allow anyone in Islam to be brain dead, not even a toddler. And the example of this goes back to Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam when his grandchild picked up a date, which was a sadaqah food, and he was only 2 or 3 years old. He had no idea. He was not sinful for going to eat a sadaqah piece of food. And Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, waved at his hands and took it out of his hands and said, no, 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 that's not, that's dirty, that's wrong. No, no, we don't do that. And Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam came down to the level of the toddler and spoke to the toddler about something that was probably not going to remain in the memory of that child, you could say long term, but was going to set a short term impression of there's something that's yuck, there's something that's wrong, there's something that's I shouldn't be doing. And so the encouragement and the correction and the use of our brain and questioning our actions actually begins from a very, very, very young age, from a tender age of when they're babies and they're toddlers. And that's the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the seriousness behind brain dead activity, the seriousness behind just walking around saying 6'7", 6'7", because some basketball player said it, somebody made a video, some kid put it together, and it went viral on social media. It is something that we do question and we do discuss with our tender primary school children, because what we're developing with them is the process of thinking, the process of questioning, the process of understanding, and not just following for the sake of following, but rather being leaders and rather being people of thought. Now, the terms viral and trend, there's this element within human beings, isn't there, that when somebody has something, it becomes a trend. Everybody's doing the house is grey, it's like a trend out on the outside, on the inside, and everybody just wants to copy that, even if it means that if you bought really expensive furniture or wallpaper or whatever you've just furnished your house with a couple of years ago, it looks brand spanking new, but it's not grey, and you want to rip the carpets out, you want to rip everything out because it's a trend. Everybody's doing it a particular way, and when that trend fades, you're no longer in fashion, you're no longer trending, and you're outdated, and it stands out. And then it's a case of the pressures on from the people around you about being up to date and having the current trend. It could be in terms of the clothes that you wear on a day-to-day basis, or special occasions, or it could be, like I said, cars and houses, and it could be social media. And if these things aren't questioned, like you said, Fazilat, about the reason behind why are you doing this, and what's the objective behind it, and to question it in terms of everything we do for a reason. Even when we sit down and watch TV, it's because we're really tired, we've had a long day, and we just want to watch something now, or we want to learn something now, or we have an essay. So the encouragement of thinking within our youth, and especially, I'm going to be even more focused, Muslim youth, it's an act of worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is constantly telling us in the Quran, to question, to think, to ponder. Sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us rhetorical questions and he answers the questions for us. And at other times, he spends a whole surah, like Surah Rahman, dedicated to just thought. Which of the favors of your Lord will you then deny? Think about it, question it. Who's in charge? Who's the boss? Who leads the way here? It's only me. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Baqarah, Surah Al-Imran, and so many other surahs tells us to look at the sky, look at the creation, look at the universe, question my existence as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and your existence and your purpose and my purpose. When do we begin this discussion? It's with toddlers, it's with young children. And this isn't me saying this, and this isn't Fazilat or Musar deciding to ban Roblox or have that conversation with the tender 7-year-old or a 9-year-old in the family, but it's just to get that thought provocation going. Or the example you give, Fazilat, of the teacher who's thinking, how do I deal with this? And who's gone to the effort of doing research, for whom it's a concern, not just for her own children at home or her nieces and nephews, the children of her family or her friends, but for her class. You're looking at, in a primary class, there's about 30 children in that class. And she has this concern that how do I provoke thought within the children? So I'll imitate them. They'll think this is silly. And she's done her research to understand that actually it's a brain dead activity. And her job as a teacher is to nurture thought, is to nurture the building of the brain, is to nurture growth in the brain. And therefore to provoke that and to create that and nurture that and exercise that. She's found a way of dealing with it in her class where the kids themselves think it's silly, and then she can have that little conversation with them at their level, coming down to their level, and inshallah try and provoke more thought within them. Now, this thought provocation is something that parents need to obviously start thinking about and start doing a lot more. Guardians need to start doing it. Adults in the lives of youth and young people in their 20s and so on also need to start doing it. But just coming back to, unless there's anything that Musarat and Fazilat you want to add, because you've both been very good there. Even Fazilat hasn't interjected, but
you're on a roll, so I thought you'd let you carry on.
Sounded good, eh? No, when it comes to AI, the expansion is so great. You're looking now AI in terms of, even if we look at it from an Islamic perspective, I facilitate some sisters that are young sisters, young professionals again, in their 20s, in their 30s, and they create talks and themes and for the youth on a platform, on a social media platform. And I always encourage these young sisters to not use AI. And I've been doing this. This group of sisters have been doing these talks and circles and for the last 5-6 years, 7 years. And I've said to them, first, exert yourself, get the topic, look into it, research it, think about it. What does it mean to you personally? Look into the hadith, look into the Quran, maybe use search engines like Google to guide you to Ibn Kathir or Riyadh al-Salihin, because you can get PDFs of all sorts nowadays. And once you've understood the topic, you've owned the topic, think about the people you want to pass the concept to. Who is my audience? Who are the regular attendees? What age bracket are they? What profession are they? What background are they? And then package it in a way where you can get the message across to the others with examples to elaborate on this Islamic concept. And then if you want to, just to double check with other tools and engines and facilities out there where you can access other people's talks or other information, do that to put the bulk of the or the sprinklers on the top to make it holistic, to round it off, to polish it off. You do that, but the excessive amount of work must be your own. And when these sisters have used AI and Chat GPT, I can tell them I laugh. Because I've been active in creating talks and circles and having these discussions, is something that stands out to me. And when sisters don't own their own work, the young women or anybody that's doing anything, they can't explain that concept as well as they do when they've done their own research. And the same applies to us for our radio show as well. We've been running for nearly 6 years with us sisters. That's not including the brothers section. He's been running a lot longer, but in the 6 years we've had to think of topics after topics, and we've used these search engines. We've gained our topic titles from ideas coming from what's happening out there and what's trending out there. But at the same time, the research that we do and the packaging that we do for our show has to be something that we own. And it's really important, isn't it, for parents and guardians to recognize the seriousness behind this, because the impact isn't just on they don't know their assessments, or they don't know the work they've learned at uni, or the Islamic principles that are going to leave them, as your research has shown that you looked into, Fazilat. But they create social separation as well. People then struggle to socialize, and now AI is creating something, or it has created, should I say, chatbots, where you can have a bot and you can create a social atmosphere and an environment on technology and create your own friends who will respond to you, but they don't exist. They're an imaginary figment. Have you come across this, Fazilat and Musarat?
Oh,
I've not come across this, no. I tend to stay away from the technology
have you heard
side.
about it from the youth?
Yeah.
What about yourself, Musarat?
Many years ago, actually, a few years ago, I saw a documentary or something about Japan. Like, obviously, they're very much advanced, in
Yeah,
technology.
technology.
How, people, especially the youngsters, were so isolated, and they were dependent on these bots to interact. Like they would quickly go to, do their work and come home and chat to these bots. So I
Yeah,
was imagining, like, what the world is coming to, and is it the same direction our youth are heading towards? Like, you hardly see. I'm just going to give you an example. Like, just yesterday I was invited to a relative's house, and my children were playing with their cousins. They played for, I guess, half an hour or so, and they were like, just, they didn't know what to do, basically.
after
Everyone
that.
went to their mums
Mm,
and they were asking for their phones.
for their
Yeah.
devices. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
So
Mr.
they're so
Pause
much
there.
dependent.
Just pause there for me, please.
Yeah.
We're going into a break, believe it or not. So I'm just going to take this break. When we come back, I'm going to come back straight to you and you can carry on with that point, inshallah. So apologies for that, for making you pause. And out there to the listeners, we're just going for a quick break. We'll be back straight after and we'll continue with the show, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuhu. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the second half of this week's weekly parenting show on Inspire 105.1 FM. Your host today is myself, Sister Naveed. And joining me for today's topic of discussion are Sister Fazilat and Sister Masarat. The topic for today is brain rot. What is brain rot? What does it mean? Should it be a point of concern for us? And how, as parents and guardians, can we support and aid our future generations from the escalation of brain rot, which can lead to many, many other dangerous factors, inshallah. The contact number for today's show, if anybody wants to contribute, give feedback, make any suggestions for future shows, or have any further queries on the topics we've discussed, you can contact us on 01582481822, or you can message on 07779 481822. I'd like to come straight back to you, Msarat, because I had to interrupt you in the first half of the show, and you were making a point about children, chatbots, and smart technology and their social activities being hindered as a result of that. You can carry on. Circle ahead.
Yeah, I was talking about how our children are going behind in their social skills. Like they don't know how to keep themselves busy or even interact with other children nowadays, unless there's technology involved. Like, even when they're together, they want to watch something together, or talk about the online games. Whereas when I compare it to our generation, like when we met our cousins, we didn't want to leave.
Yeah.
We had so much to talk about and discuss,
Yeah.
and things to do. So
Yeah.
compared to that, our children, they get bored easily if they don't have anything to do.
And
Yeah.
also, I think they lack confidence now in a
Yeah,
social
yeah,
environment. They don't know how to
Mm.
conduct themselves, or like you said. So there's one aspect of not knowing what to do in a social setting, but I think that because they don't do it often and they're so reliant on their devices, that they don't have the confidence. So they might want to speak to their cousins, but they think, oh, if I say this, and it's not really cool, or it's not the in
yeah.
thing, or so
True.
they become more reserved and more isolated. So I think that's an issue as well.
It's a massive issue because it
Yeah.
impacts your real and your in-person social and communication skills. It's been reported and it's evident. You don't even need research to show you that there's a decline in the way that people are socializing, like you both have observed, like yourself, Masrat, you talked about in the first half of the show at the end, where you went to your cousin's house and the young children, after about half an hour, they just wanted devices. They couldn't handle the social aspect, and nor do they know what to do because it's alien to them because they're so used to devices. As they grow up, I mean, Fazila and Masarat, both of you, mashallah, have young adults now. But in terms of the anxiety that can come with this, in terms of going to somebody's house, how long we're going to be there, what they can talk about, like you guys are saying, we even today, when we meet old friends or we meet cousins and relatives, we just pick up from where we left off. But if the youth are behind screens and they're not having
Mm.
in-person socialization, then they're not gaining socializing skills. So they don't even know how to hold these conversations or how to conduct these conversations. It might sound really strange to us, and we might think, oh, well, they're just from another time. Ali
Yeah.
Radiallahu who said they're from another time. They're from another time in the way that they are going to flourish for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the way that they are going to maybe use these platforms to aid their discussions and their debates and to get their message across. But they're not from another time when it comes to the fact that we are social creatures and we're human beings and we need to learn interaction skills on real life basis. This is the purpose of a Muslim, and this is the purpose of a human being at large, even if you're not
I
a
think
Muslim. And it's important to have that.
but I think then that goes back down to the parents, isn't it? So
Yes.
um and I speak for myself first before anyone else, but
Don't we all?
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think when sometimes we follow the trend. So I know we discussed at the beginning this 6-7 thing, for example. But say when we're raising our kids, we think, oh, it's okay. It's okay for them to have a phone, or it's okay for them to watch, hours of TV, and if we're going to a family's house, or they don't want to go, well, let's leave them, not take them. It's easier to leave them at home than take them
Yeah.
with us. So I
True.
think we've kind of created this generation in that way because we've added to it. We haven't, and because we haven't stopped and thought, why are we not taking them? Is it because we don't want to be hassled while we're chatting to our family and friends, or our, in our social environment? Whereas if you, like Musad had said, when we used to go, our parents used to take us, and we were put in that position. We weren't asked if we want to go. We took though, and we developed those skills. It wasn't like, oh, we're taking you today
Yeah.
so you can develop your skills. It wasn't like it wasn't
Yeah.
that, was it? You were just taken, and then you did naturally. You did build the confidence. You did, and
You
you
had no
learned.
choice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and you got on with it. It wasn't that we went and we sat in a corner, because that wasn't an option. And I think we've kind of mollycoddled our kids, and we've given into whatever the social trends are. And I think maybe parented like zombies as well, to a certain degree,
Yes.
and not being
Easy
critical
parenting.
thinkers. Yeah. And yet maybe we think in reality we were thinking that we're kind of the trendy parents, or the modern parents. We thought we were doing the right thing. So I don't think our intentions were bad, inshallah, but I think we didn't stop and question why we're doing this, and is this good or not good? What are the consequences of that going to be? So I think, I know we can talk about the way the children are, but I think we have to take a lot of accountability for the way we've been. And
Yeah.
and you do, and you see the effects of it now, you know.
Yeah.
And like say now my kids are a bit older, or say some of them are older, but say I see my nieces and nephews, and hindsight is a beautiful thing, and you think, why are we doing this, for example? And we had the PlayStations and Xboxes, and we know this from when kids are on there for say a couple hours, they come off and they're frustrated, and they don't know how to channel their energy, and they don't know what to do. And we see this. I've seen it, and I'm sure you guys have
Yeah.
seen it as well, that they're so mesmerized into this world that they don't know. And the same with little kids when they're on YouTube, or for example watching cartoons. And I think the cartoons are not made like they were made back in the days. And you think, and they come off, and they're just angry and frustrated, and they're running around, and they don't know, again, like how to channel. So even like a 16-year-old coming off the PlayStation, and let's say 3-year-old coming off YouTube, they have similar reactions, and similar, like, that's how they are. So I don't know, I think we have to be the critical thinkers, and we have to take accountability and trying to rectify it, and try to advise those that have got younger children and older children to see what's happening. And yeah.
Yeah, because the impact of it is very deep. Not only do your child, do your children not gain the social skills, it's unpacking it as a parent, rectifying it. There's no age of where, oh my God, it's beyond rectification. Even if your child's 25, it can be rectified. You might have to take smaller steps, and you might have to use a different parenting approach, and keep at it. But just question why are we using these devices if your children and what is the reason for us buying these devices, and the exposure at which, because in today's society you need these devices because even schools are relying on them for homework, and that's the
Yes.
catch. Yeah. So what's the exposure? How much is the exposure? How is the use? Is it easy parenting? Is it keeping up with the Joneses? Is it just I've never thought about it? Is it I've just thought the schools said we need these devices, so they must be okay and they must be safe and they are the way forward, not knowing the detrimental impact and effect it's having on the future generations, even in relation to the sense of their self-worth. The negative thoughts that it produces, the negative value of yourself that it produces, where you feel you're incapable, you have anxiety to step out of technology and meet real people and talk to real people, then it's a case of role playing this with our youth, how to have conduct of conversation, the different variety of conversation. Like you said, Fazila, nobody was there to teach us. We just mimicked, learnt, everybody at their own level, some of us in a clumsy way, about how to socially interact and do these activities. And I will still say, as a woman in her 40s, certain activities that I wasn't exposed to at a young age, I still struggle with even now. There's certain expectations in the Asian culture where you don't go to deaths, for example, before you're married. And then after you're married, you are an
You're
adult.
thrown in the deep end.
Yeah, even if you're 17 or 18.
Yes, yeah.
And there's an expectation. Until this day, I struggle with going to deaths and paying my respect to the family. I find it really awkward to do that. Whereas my sister, who married at the age of 17, and when she goes to these places, she's much more comfortable than I am, because I married when I was almost 26. So I'd already never been exposed. And then I was away from the family in terms of I'm married down south, and so my exposure was less. And so it wasn't until my 30s that I was entering into this field, and there's still a reluctancy. If I'm with the women of my family, like my sister or my sister-in-laws, I'll be like, okay, you lot lead the way, and I'll just kind of follow. But yet the confidence I have with the radio or talks or my work in life coaching or whatever is totally different, because I expose myself to that. There's a confidence in that. So you can even measure, even if you dissect yourself and your strengths and weaknesses, you can connect it back to certain things that were encouraged in you from a young age or not, and then how to teach them to the youth, to the older children, and discuss them with them to get the cog working, to get their brain working, to actually make them start thinking that this is important. And it's also important from Islam. It's not just a case of you need to socialize for your own self, but it's an act of ibadah. But I think there's an importance. Go on, Fasila.
No, but I think, like I was thinking about this the other day, I was thinking that the expectations we have of our children, for example, are very low compared to what it should be, according to Islam. So if you look back over our history, that not children, men as young as 2021 were ruling the ruling states, ruling the state, and even younger ones were politicians,
facilitating armies, and at the forefront of decision making and political conversations. They were driving
exactly.
The
they were the driving force.
Yeah.
Whereas we're thinking, if our 21-year-old just about gets out of bed and goes to uni, for example,
oh my God, on time,
on time is an achievement. So I think that's sometimes I think, gosh, where was that level and where are we at now? And the expectations. So I think I feel that we've not parented with that expectation. That makes sense. Because if we had that expectation, we'd parent differently. And it goes back to that we haven't thought about parenting as parents. Like, we haven't questioned how are we raising, and what are we raising, to what level are we raising our children to? And I think we've tried, and like I said, we've tried to protect our children, but what are we protecting them from?
Well, Fasila, I'm going to interject you right there. I'm sorry that I feel like you want to come in as well, and I'll give you an opportunity in a minute. But based on that point, it goes right back. We're doing a 360 now, that we've not parented correctly, or we've done this because not just because as parents we're in this, but we are also part of the society, and society has facilitated this brain rotness. So this whole aspect of let them just hide away, let them just be like that. Everybody else is doing it. Society is encouraging hide behind a screen and don't come out, and it's easy for the parents and it's
But my point
convenient for
now
the
is
parents.
it's not
It
new
becomes
though.
a trend. It
It's not
becomes a
new.
trend.
It's
Yeah.
not new because then for example, those of us have got older children, that was going back, say, 20, 30 years ago. And I think that the issue was there then, but we didn't realize it as much. I think we
It
were
wasn't
still,
to this extent. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I think it was there. And I think we
Yes, it
just didn't,
was.
it was
Yeah.
more undercover rather than right in our face.
Yeah.
Now we're openly talking about it, but I think it was there again, but we just subconsciously we kind of went with societal
Yeah.
norms
So
and
what we're
trends.
saying is
Yeah.
that what the parents and guardians need to do is reverse the trend. That is a
Mm,
trend,
Yeah.
because not
yes.
necessarily what everybody is doing is correct. We ourselves need to take a step back and think, I'm going to be different.
Mm.
I'm not going to do what everybody else is doing. My child's not going to have a smartphone up to this age. My child's going to have controlled access to technology or to gaming or to these facilities. My child is going to have access because they're growing up now and they're becoming an adult and they're going to start making their decisions. But I'm going to explain to them how we use this and how we don't. And I'm going to take them out with me and socialize from a young age. So that when they get to the age of where they don't want to go anymore, when they're 14, 15, 16 onwards, then at least I've instilled some basic level of social skills and social exposure. And this is because, like, the connection is back to Islam, that this is an act of worship. And this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala demands from us, because the interaction that the youth of the past, of the history of Islam had, was with real human beings dealing with real issues, not with chatbots where you create the discussion and you get the response you want that suits you. And in real life, therefore, then we struggle. We struggle with marriages. We struggle with extended families of in-laws, and at workplaces with work colleagues, and we have anxiety and we don't know how to handle the situation, or how to have patience, or how to deal with people that come with different opinions, and it creates chaos in society. So the reversing of this is paramount to be to facilitate the return of the correct Islamic thinking and the thought provocation that the future generations need to have. Masarat, what are your points? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I had a lot of things in my mind. And, one thing, just today morning, my eldest one, who's 19 and who was born before the smartphones came, and, she was telling me, Mom, have you noticed? She was talking about one of her younger siblings that, Mom, have you noticed she's so selfish, you know? She can't share anything. And I'm just thinking, I didn't say anything to her. And I'm like trying to process and, think about it. And I'm thinking, you know, uh, what can I expect when children nowadays, they have everything, instantly they ask for and they get
Available.
everything.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
even with regards to when we think how my older children, they had one TV and they had a screen time and they would watch together, share whatever's coming on the TV, they would watch with their siblings. And nowadays, when there's screen time, everybody wants to watch what they want. Like, they don't agree on one thing. So what do you expect? Like, obviously they don't know what sharing is, what empathy is. And they have all these mood swings and they want to do what they like.
And they have no patience, and they
Yeah, no
can't
patience.
and they
Yeah.
can't cope with another person
Yeah.
for a long period of time, and hence it creates the social dysfunctional aspects that create family dysfunctional aspects, and so
Yeah.
on. So moving on to the cognitive decline, yeah, as we call it, uh, in terms of the attention spans and the impact it's having on our memories and decision-making skills. So just connecting it back to AI, Fazila, as we mentioned that at the beginning. So in terms of the reality of the fact that, going back to the fact that any telephone numbers that we may have learned before the era of mobile phones, we still know them off by heart, or any mobile numbers that existed at the beginning when our brains worked at that rapid pace of storing information. we'll still remember those numbers. Am I right? Do you guys still remember old telephone numbers, including
Yeah.
dialing codes?
Yeah, some of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anybody knew, even ourselves as parents and guardians, as the elders maybe of our community and society, we won't know them. I don't know both your numbers off by heart, for example, and you've both been in my life for a very, very long time. Yeah. And I don't, and I was thinking about this when I was preparing for the show, in terms of, do I know my siblings' numbers? I only know my sister's telephone number, because she's not her mobile number, because she's not changed it since the beginning. I don't know my brothers. I don't know my parents. I don't know my children's.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yeah,
yeah. But then,
yeah.
Navid, I know that we're talking about that, but then if you remember back before smartphones came in, when my dad was a taxi driver for many years,
Mm,
and other people,
mm,
they knew the routes. They read maps and they knew the routes. They knew where they were going. I
yeah.
remember we went to a wedding a good 15 years ago, I think it was, and
Mm,
we're coming back from up north, and there was a road diversion in the middle of the night. We come back really late, and my dad didn't have sat nav. My brothers did,
mm,
so they just
mm,
followed the routes where they were going.
mm.
My dad didn't, but he knew. Mashallah, he
Yeah,
knew where he was going,
yeah,
and I was like, wow, like, and now. If you want to go somewhere local, we have it on, on Google Maps,
Yeah.
within Luton.
True.
So even
yeah,
that's, can you, if you look at that, like, it's a piece of technology. I know we're going to come
Yeah.
on to AI, but even something simple as the GPS thing, it's the brain is very capable of even mapping out, like you
Mm,
said, going around the
yeah.
whole
yeah.
country without any technology. And something else I was reading about, even calculators, for example,
Yeah.
Mm,
before the calculators,
mm.
it was done with our head, with our brains,
Mental maths.
mental
Mm,
maths.
mm.
Now children are struggling
Yeah.
Now, mental maths is
because
a category. It's a
yes,
book.
Yeah.
exactly. Where it
Yeah,
was before, it was if you tell
Yeah.
them to do a simple sum, they'll have to think,
Yeah.
and so I think it's just any technology, not just
Yeah.
like
yeah,
even the basic technology, like something basic as a calculator or a GPS. I think
Yeah.
it slows your brain down. You become dependent on it, and you're not using your brain. Whereas Allah has created us, and our brain is really vast, and it can
yeah.
have a lot, do a
Mm.
lot.
Well, this is it. There's
Also,
the. Sorry, go ahead, Musala. Go ahead.
also, Fazilat, like you said about calculators, like Navid, you said you struggle with using technology. Like I sit with my son to help him with his GCSEs, and I struggle with using the calculators, and he goes, "Mom, you can just use Chat GPT." I was like, "No, it's simple maths. You can just do with a pen and paper."
Yeah.
Like
Mm,
when we were
mm.
young, we would ask our older siblings or our parents if we didn't know anything. But nowadays children don't
Yeah,
they
you've
don't
got to a
need
device.
us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. There's a
there's no
couple of points here. There's a lot that you two have said. We're coming in to believe it or not the last 5 minutes of the show. So, I mean, one aspect, not everybody's going to be good with maths. So, therefore, we understand the use of technology, the importance of technology. A calculator is very important for those who it might be a natural weakness for. There's one aspect of that. There's one aspect of convenience, but there's another aspect when it leads to dependency and brain rot and no use of your own brain in the relation to that activity. One of the pushing factors is the fact that how, say, whether it's your father or whether it's my mother, who's in her 70s, she could still take you from Sheffield all the way to Birmingham to her sister's house. She doesn't read English. She doesn't speak very good English, but she knows her route because she's been doing these routes. She can take you to Bradford, Keighley, so many places up and down the country. And that's because of the use of the brain, the understanding of landmarks, the understanding of the routes and the roads, and so on and so forth. Today, we're living in times where, my son has just started doing tuition in another area of Luton, and I've never been there before. And I've been 3 or 4 times now, and I'm still using Google Maps to get there, which once again shows how we're not exercising our brain, like you said, Fazila, where even if we don't need to for convenience, we just stick that on and we have a map on in the background. But if there's a route that you're constantly doing, what you'll find, for example, my route to Harpenden every morning, I know quicker routes than what the maps shows me, and I'll have it on as just a guidance to gain an idea of the traffic, but I'm not following it. And my boys will always laugh. They're like, "Mom has the map on, but she doesn't even listen to the map," and it's because I'm confident about the route that I'm going to take. But if there's any further massive issues of congestion, traffic, accidents, it will update me and it'll inform me, and then I can divert or maybe listen to it for a little while. So issues such as Alzheimer's and dementia are crucial things that are now being discussed, that maybe they're creeping in at a younger and younger age within our population and the human population. And this is something that we need to take very, very seriously. So the whole issue, of whether we look at it from a health perspective, whether we look at it from a social perspective, whether we look at it from a mental and physical perspective, whether we look at it from the fact of accuracy of ChatGPT and AI and so on, the algorithm and the bias of the technology, which could be impaired and which will definitely stifle your critical thinking and your critical creativity, that as a Muslim is crucial for you. And it goes back to one very important point that one respected scholar made when he said, break the pen. And that for us today is break the technology, meaning listen to the concept, listen to the subject matter that you want to learn, or use your brain, activate your brain. So that today would be translated as break the technology or break the AI, the use of it, and start to use your brain again and use these things as facilities rather than to get your job done. Like you said, Musarat, about your child saying, Mom, you don't need to understand how to use this complex calculator, just got to chat GPT. But that is not the exercising of the brain. And the killing off of the brain leads to further and many, many future ailments, whether it's in our social skills, whether it's our interaction, whether it's our ability to get concepts across accurately and to own our concepts as well. And also from the Islamic aspect, of the aspect of ibadah, about owning our intentions and our actions and being convinced of the concepts that we carry as well, and so much more as well. So there's a lot of work that we need to do. There's a lot of thinking that we need to do. This is a serious matter that we need to take very seriously and inshallah gain growth and depth and acknowledgement and change on this subject matter. Jazakallah khair to both of you for joining me today. There's so much more that we could have spoke about. Jazakallah khair to the listeners as well. Please forgive us for any shortcomings or mistakes. And until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa